Hello everyone, and welcome to Check Coding. So I think for our previous tutorials, we've been looking at data structures and algorithms with JavaScript, right? So I think in our attempt to teach you the data structures with JavaScript, I think it is worth mentioning of these the basic operations and how to increment and decrement, and the assignment operator, the comparison operator, the Boolean logic, switch statement, and some ternary operators, right? So I think without wasting much time, I think let's start. So from our previous tutorials, we dealt with variables, so we all know how to declare variables. So we can declare variable like number equal to, let's say, 5. So when we declare a number using the keyword and giving it a variable name and assigning it a value, right? So we already know how to declare variable, and it is worth mentioning to learn about some operators that can help us do some basic mathematics computation, right? So I think for the first one, we're going to look at the I think is the addition sign, right? The addition, right? So the addition operator will help us to concatenate or to add together two variables or two numbers or two data types, right? So two data types, meaning we can maybe add an integer to an integer, a string to a string, and all those. So without wasting much time, I think we'll take some examples. So assuming we had a variable of, let's say, right, number 1, right, number 1 is equal to 1, and we had var, and we had number 2, right, is equal to, let's say, 2, right? Now I think using the addition operator, it will be very nice for us to have, let's say, a result, right, and assign the number 1 plus the number 2, right? So I think now when we console.log the results into the console, we'll see that, okay, so I think we'll see that number 1 is not defined. So number 1, okay, so we'll see that. Yes. So I think let's comment that. Don't worry us in the future. Yes. So this is the addition operator, right? So the addition operator, it helps us to add together two variables or two strings. So we can say var of, let's say, right, string 1 is equal to, let's say, hello, right? And we can say var then string 2. So I said of different data types. So string 2 is equal to, let's say, so we can, I think JavaScript is not, will not pay much attention if you don't bring the colon, but I think for the convention, so let's say we can, it's a preference, so you can choose to bring it or you can choose not to bring it. So let's also say result 1 is equal to, so string 1 plus string 2, right? Then we can console.log the results, and we'll see that result 1 rather, and we'll see that we have hello Boolean. So this addition operator can help us to concatenate or to add together two data types and all that stuff, right? So now another one that we'll look at, right, is the subtraction, right? The subtraction, okay. So subtraction operator, right? So I think that with that one too, I think I'll borrow this 1 here and bring it here. Guys, you don't have to be lazy, right? So let's say 3 and let's say 6. So let's say num3 and let's say num6, right? So num3 and num6. And now when we print, let's say when we print this, we'll see that we'll have using the subtraction sign, we'll see that we'll have -3, right? Because 3 minus 6 will be left with -3, right? So I think if you have this concept in mind, right? This, because in our attempts to teach you the data structures and algorithm, I think you'll be dealing a lot with the subtraction and addition sign and all those. So I think another one that is worth mentioning is the multiplication, right? Is the multiplication operator, right? So the multiplication operator is the hash sign, right? So that one too, I think I'm going to borrow this. So I'm going to borrow a code from top here and I'll copy that one and I'll paste it here. So I can say, and let's see X, and let's see, and let's see, and let's see, and this as well. So when we use this sign, we will see that our result becomes 18, right? So I think with the multiplication sign, we know that it will multiply these two numbers, that is the 3, 6. Now we know that 3 times 6 gives us 18. So you'll see that down here, we have a result of 18. Now we can also console.log, right? We can also console.log and say maybe let's say the result is right, and we bring in, we'll see the result is right. So it depends on how you want to format your string. And now another one that is worth mentioning, right? Another one that is worth mentioning is, I think, the division, right? So we can also use the division, right? The division. Thank you. If I'm going fast, you can stop me. I don't know if I'm going fast.
I think it's okay, no problem. The pace is fine.
Okay, so another one that we'll pay attention is the division sign, right? So in the same way, when you try to borrow code from this sign and we say maybe D, right? And let's say K, it depends, right? These names are very weird. Guys, I would advise that you name your variable like that. But for me, I can do it like this for the meantime because it's a tutorial. So let's see, result 3, then result 3, then we can use this, right? And we will see that 3 divided by 6 will give us 0.5, right? So I think the division also takes the numerator and divide it over the denominator. So in that case, then d becomes the numerator and then k becomes the denominator. So it will be the numerator over the denominator. That's what will yield the 0.5. I think another one also that is worth mentioning is the modulus, right? The remainder, right? Is the modulus, for which we call the remainder. That is the percent sign, right? You can use the I think remainder, or sometimes refer to as the I think modulo, I guess modulus, like this, I guess I'm right. The modulus, right? So the modulus will yield, yeah. So the mode is like this, right? The modulus.
Modulus, yeah.
Okay, so
US.
modulo or Yeah. So I think with that one too, if we also take this code from here, right, and also paste it here and go with, let's say, R, and let's say big S, right, and go with the R, right, and go with the big S, big S, and we change this to result 4 and change it to result 4, then we change our sign to the modulus. Now we'll see that 3 goes into, so 3 modulus 6, 3 goes into 6, I think 8 modulus, let's say 2, right? So we have 0, right? We have 0, and when we use 3, we'll get 2. So 3 to 6, right? 3 times 2 will give you 6, plus 2 will give you 8. So I think 3 goes into 8 2 times remainder 2. So we see that. So now this is the remainder, right? Yes, the remainder is 2. So 3 will go into 8 2 times, right? Because 3 to 6 plus 2. So the plus is the remainder, right? So guys, don't get confused. So we can use, let's say 10 and 3. We'll get 1 because 3, 9 plus 1, 10, right? So 3 goes into 10, 3 times remainder 1. So that is what we get here, right? Yes. So another one also that it is worth mentioning again is the exponential, which is the double. So the exponential, right? Exponential, something like that. So the exponential. So the exponential is just like 2 raised to the power 3, 2 raised to the power 4, and all those. So if we again, sorry, I'm being lazy, copy this and be like E, and let's say Y, and we use, let's say, E, and we say Y, and our result should be 5, and this also should be 5, right? 5. So we'll say that, so let's say, right, exponents, right? So now we'll see that when we use this and we have, let's say, 2 exponent 3, we get 8. So the exponent is just like 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So this will just, the 2 will raise 3 to the power. That is why we have 8 here. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So guys, I think this is the basic operations, right? The math operation that we can perform on any value or any data types, being an integer, being a float, being a string, and all those things, right? It depends. Now, assuming that you have a string of, let's say, so let's take an example, right? So let's take an example. So assuming we have something like, so example, we have var, and let's say we have a word, right? We have a word, and we are assigning to, let's say, so this is, let's say, a boy, right? We know that we can have, let's say, a variable called, let's say, length, and assign it to, let's say, word dots. We have already learned about this. So when we console.log this, we'll see that we have a value, right? We have a value of 13. Now, since we have a value of 13 from this string, when we pass it to the length function, that gives us the length of this word, right? We can also perform some calculations. So we'll say that let's divide the length by, let's say 2, right? And we'll get 6.5. We can multiply the length by 2 to get 26. We can raise it to the power to get 169. we can perform modulus on it, remainder, to get the remainder, right? And all those. So this is a quick way to manipulate your string with this math operators, right? So I think we have come a long way looking at this addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and the modulus as the modulus or the remainder, and we've looked at the exponential, right? So I think these are the basic these are the basic math operators that when you know, right, and in our quest to learn the data structures, it will play a major role in that, right? So I think it is worth mentioning, and that is why we've taken the time to go through. Now, another one that we'll look at, right, is I think the increment, right, is the increment. So I think we'll also look at the increments, right? So guys, I'll comment this so that we can use, we can also use, so we'll look at what we call the increment and the decrement. So in our for loop, right? So let's write a quick for loop, right? Let's write a quick for loop. We know how to write for loop, right? So we declare a variable and we initiate it, right? So let's say I is equal to 0. And assuming we had, let's say, a variable here, and we call it num, and we assign it to an array. We already know how to declare an array, right? So assuming we say, let's say I less than the nums, right, dot length. We already know what the length does, right? Dot length, and we said updates, right? When passing the last parameter of the for loop, right, is the update. So we see that most of the time we do I plus plus. This is an update, right? This is an update because we are trying to update it. So assuming when we console.log, maybe let's say the num, right? When you console.log I, we'll see that you said, oh, it's not okay. So sorry. So we'll see that we have this, right? So how can we also deal with this, right? So this is the increment that I was talking about. So this is the increment, right? So we have to know that this is the increment operator. So assuming that, assuming we want to, let's say, increase it by 2, right? So we can do num plus plus, we get 9, right? At the time of the returning of the value, we get 9. So we've added 1 to the 8, right? So one way to is just to, let's say, do it like this, right? So nums plus, so let's say, var nums is equal to nums plus 2, right? Is the same. We get the same results, right? So you see that when we've declared this variable, right, and we've declared it again, assigning the previous num plus 2, and we get 10. So this is one way to do it. So one way to do it is just call the nums, right, plus plus, or we can call the nums is equal to nums plus, let's say, 1 or 2, let's say 2, right? So this is how to increment a value in JavaScript, right? So using the basic operators, you can increment by using nums plus plus, or nums is equal to nums plus 2. You can reassign this variable again, call that variable again, and make an increment, right? So in a similar fashion, we can also reduce it by just bringing the minus the subtraction subtract operator that we learned from the previous lesson, right? So we can subtract 2 from 8, we get 6. Similarly, we can also just do minus, right? And we'll get the same result. We will see that 8 has been reduced to 7. So we can also have something like the nums minus, or the nums, right? Nums minus 2, right? In the same way. So I think these are the basic way to increments, right? So we can also have this one. So we can also have the var nums, right, is equal to nums times 2, right? And we'll have 16. We can also have nums modulus 2. You have 0 because it's 8. 2 can go into 8 without any remainder, right? We can do the exponential. We can increase by, we can update by exponential. We can update by the division. 8 divided by 2 is 4, right? So we can have so many. We can have, I think we can have this, right, with this, and we can have, sorry, with this as well, with this, and with this, right? And as well as this, the modulus. So you can update in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can update almost in 6 ways, in 6 different ways, basing your idea on the arithmetic operators, that is the subtraction, exponential, addition, multiplication, division, the modulus, and all those, right? So I think with this this basic fundamentals, we can go to this, what we call the comparison operators, right? So I think with it,
I have a question before you go on. I don't know if it's possible we can experiment something over here. No, don't comment that one. If you can come back to that one. Yeah. Since we've already declared the variable nums, is it possible we can take the var from the second one and let's see what will happen if you will still get the results? Yeah. Okay, so it works. Yeah.
I get it. But it is it's just like a way to reassign. You can do it basically in this and it will work because you are still modifying the parent variable that you declared. So it's all the same. But for learning purpose, like you can just do it like this, like reassigning it in. It's just the same, right? You can just do it like that. It'll still work, right? So I think it's a preference.
Yeah.
How you choose to do it works.
Yeah.
So the basic fundamentals of this arithmetic and this increment and decrement, right? I think with that said, we can look at the comparison operators. Now, what are the comparison operators? The comparison operators gives us the flexibility to compare two objects, right? Two objects, I mean, whether it is greater than the other, or it is less than the other, or it is equal to the other, right? So with much not said, I think we'll look at what we call the greater than, right? The greater than, right? So we can check, we can just simply console.log if, let's say, 13 is greater than 1, and we'll see true, right? We can also console, so let's copy the same thing, and you can experiment less than, we'll get false. And I think with the comparison operators, what you get back as a return value is a Boolean operator, right? So a Boolean Boolean, true or false, because you are doing a comparison. Is 13 greater than 1? True. Is 13 less than 1? False. Similarly, we can do is 13, let's say, greater than or equal to 1. We'll get is 13 greater than or equal to 1. We are getting true. Now, with this, is 13 greater than or equal to? So meaning that we are just trying to compare. 13 is greater than, right? But with this logic or comparison operators, right? So we can have less than equal to, greater than or equal to, and we know that 13 is less than or is greater than or equal to 1 in a sense, right? So we can have less than or equal to, and it's false. And but I think the reason why we are having this to be true, right? It's because 13 is greater than, but it's not equal to 1 million, right? But I think the reason why I mentioned earlier that the reason why we are getting greater than or equal to 1 gives us true is that we have what we call precedence, right? We have operator precedence, and you can read about it in the Python JavaScript documentation, right? So the greater than has a higher precedence over the equal to. That is why we are having true for that. And the same thing, the less than also has a precedence over the equal to in a similar fashion, right? So that is why we have true in this case, because 13 cannot be greater than and also equal to 1. But I think the reason why we are having the true is that is what we call the precedence, right? Some operators have precedence over the others, right? So please keep that in mind. And we can also console.log what we call I think not equal to, right? Not equal to, right? So you can see that 13 is not equal to 1. That is true. And I think we can do the last one by doing by doing a console.log 13 equal 1, and we'll see that we also have false. Now, before we move on, let's quickly go over, right? So we said in our comparison operator, we have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to, and equal to, right? So this is how we declare the equal to. We just don't do this equal to, because this one equal to is used for assignments, right? We use it to assign a value to a variable in that fashion. So when you want to compare two objects of the same type, right? So integer and an integer, we have to use this two, right? So this is the basic of this comparison operator. So we can just let's look at a practical example, right? So I think a practical example will be okay for us, right? So let's say we have two variables, right? We have two variables. So let's declare two variables. We have x is equal to, let's say, 13 as we used, and we have var y is equal to, let's say, 1 as we used, right? So now we've already learned how to perform the if statements, right? Conditions, how to write conditions in JavaScript. So we learned about that. So I think you have to revisit the code, the previous tutorials the previous lectures that we did, and you'll be fine. So I think let's do something small. And let's say if, right, x is greater than y, right? We want to print, let's say, so let's simply console.log. So console.log, right? Let's log x is, right, greater than y, right? And we see that it is true, right? So else, let's log so let's do console.log else y is greater. yeah, and we see that we have this here, x is greater than y. So we can use it in a similar fashion over here. So we can just change this one to, let's say, 0, right? And we'll see y is greater than x, right? In that fashion. We can also do the greater than or equal to, right? We can just do greater than or equal to, and we can just do 13 as we did, and we'll still get x is greater than y. Sorry. This we still get x is greater than y. We can equally do the less than, and we get y is greater than x. We can just do less than or equal to, and we still get x, y is greater than x. We can just do the equal to, right? And we see that y is greater than x. Now, how is that possible, right? How is that possible that we are getting y is greater than x? Okay, so let's try to analyze. So if x is equal to y, right? William, what do you think is happening? We have y is greater than, we all know that y is 1. So
y is greater than 1 is just a console.log else. So it's just asking, is x or is 13 equal
okay,
y?
okay. So you're having a false.
That's
having
right.
a false, right?
Yeah, false.
Having a false as
That's right.
as a return. So
Exactly.
yes, so that is why.
That's what you have
okay,
y
okay,
is.
that's exactly. So that is how to analyze, but we can also do not equal to, right? So not equal to, and we can see that truly y, x is not equal to y. So true, right? So this is true. So we have this, but this was false. So we have this, right? Yeah. So so you can bear witness that in the last option that we did here, we had false. So yeah, we have the same thing. So I think this is a practical example of how to deal with the logical operation, right? So we can do complex stuff with it when we look at the Boolean logic, right? So let's quickly comment this, and I think we will revisit this code once again. So with much not said, let's look at the Boolean logic, right? Now the Boolean logic comes in 3 forms, right? We have the end. I'm listing it in a hierarchy, right? We have the I think the
none.
Is it the not?
None. Yeah.
Yes, not, and all, right? I think the not has more precedence over the end, and the end also has more precedence over the all, if I'm correct. And nope.
Yeah, the top one is different. Yeah.
No, so this is
Exclamation sign. Yeah.
And this is and
Two of it. Yes, and then all.
This is all.
Yeah.
This pipe. Yeah.
So
I think let's say this, right? So let's say true for true, right? True if all are true, right? That was how simple I can explain. It's no. Okay, sorry. This is for this, I think. Sorry, mistake. This is for this, and for this we'll have, right, true if 1, right? If 1 rather, and I think this will be the inverse
of everything.
The inverse of both. So the inverse of, let's say, true or false, I guess. Yeah, I think, yeah. So this is it, right? So I think, let me write it here. These are the Boolean logics, right? Yeah. So with this, we'll see that when we have, so let's say we have end here. So let's have end. Let's have end here, and I'll try and do it in this way. So we have end, and we have true, right? And we have false. And down here we have, so beneath, I think beneath this end we have also true, and we have false, right? So what happens when true and true meet? So true and true should give us, right, true. Then true and false should give us false, right? True and false should give us false. And false and true should give us false, and false and false should give us, again, false. So this is a very strategic way for you to, I think, understand. Let me see if we can do something like this. And we can do something like this, and this, and this, I guess. So, and this, right? I think, yes, yes. And we can also do something like this, right? So I think this is the best way to understand it. So, and when true and true meets ends, and the end logical, the Boolean logic, we have true. And when it meets one false, so we said true if all are true. So even if one is false, we have false, right? So true, 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 false, 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 true, false, 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 right? And I think we'll have to copy this one and do it for the all. So we'll change this to all, right? We'll change this to all, and we'll clear this, and we'll clear this, and we'll clear this, right? So now when we said true, if one is true, so true, true will still give you true, right? And true, false would still give you true, and false, true will give you true, false, false will give you false. So you can see the trend over here, right? You can see the trend over here. You will see that there is a trend, and it is your responsibility, I think, to draw a clear distinction between. So now the last one is the not, right? So the not is the inverse of true. So assuming we have so let's briefly take example, right? And I said we'll revisit this code. So let's copy this, and let's come here, let's paste it here, and I'll comment this, right? So we have 2 and x and y, right? X and y, and we are saying that, so let's have another value called var, then we have z is equal to, let's say, 23, and var, let's say, k, right, is equal to 12, right? Okay, so now let's first look at the and, right? The and. Now we have this, right? Let's see what we will get. So and we have, so let's say have greater than, and let's say k is greater than z, right? Z. Now we'll see that we'll have y is greater than x. So now what it's doing is that now this is true, right? And this is false. right? Because x is greater than 1, but 12 is not greater than 23. So we have true and a false. And we said when true meets false, we get false. So this here results to false, right? So that is why we have y is greater than x, right? Again, when we copy this code, paste it down here and change this, right? So let's change it to this. And we'll see that we'll have x is greater than y because here evaluates to true and this one too is true. And what did we say? We said when true meets true, we get true. And when true meets false, we get false, right? So I think we can we can distinguish between the two, right? So in a similar fashion to when we say something like this and we are like, so let's try and do something like this. And let's bring something this. So we have y is greater than what? Y is greater than x because here was true. And we said the not, right, inverts, right, inverts true or false. So by making now true will yield false and false yields true, right? So that's how you understand. We have to understand it. So
I think
the opposite of
so at least you can understand it that way, that okay, whenever you give me true,
yes.
I will automatically make it false. Whenever you give me
Yes.
false, I will automatically make it true. Is that the case,
Exactly.
right?
So,
Okay.
yes, so that is how we are supposed to understand it. Now, when we use this pipe, right? Pipe will give us x is greater than 1 because we said the pipe is true if 1 is true. And we said true means true, true means false, true, right? So if we have the pipe here, this true will be changed to false and this still holds true. So we get true, right? We get true. And this we get true, right? So in that manner, so I think these are the basic Boolean logic that you're supposed to keep in mind, right? So we said the pipe is for the or, the end is for the end, and the not, the exclamation mark is for the not. And we said, let's quickly go through. We said the not, right? The not will invert true to false and false to true. The end Boolean logic will evaluate true if all are true, and the all will evaluate true if one is true. So now I think this is a basic way for us to understand the Boolean logic. So now what's one thing that we'll look at again is the switch statement, right? Is the switch statement. So we have what we call switch statement in JavaScript, and these I look at it in a form of a context manager, right? So instead of us to write so many if statements to handle situations, we can just use the switch statement to just handle all cases, right? So let's take an example. So let's take an example of, let's say, variable. So var, let's say, months equal to, let's say, January, right? So we want to write conditions. If the months change, we want to log to the console.log what month we are in, right? So you can write if month, right? So we'll say if month equal so let's say January, right? January. We want to console, right? See, I'm writing Python syntax. we want to console.log, let's say it's January, right? It's January. And in a similar way, we can write else if, so let's copy this and paste it here. So else if we say month is, let's say, February, right? We want to console.log, let's say, so this, let's paste it here. Let's paste this. I'm being lazy. Let's paste this. And let's paste it here. And we can write another, right? Else if. So you see that our else if is becoming very plenty and it's not nice. You see, it's not nice. So January, February, we have I think March, and we can just do this console.log. So paste, copy, paste. So let's say we write it's we write it, so we reach, let's say, okay, so let's say till we hit, let's say, December, right? So else if we are in, let's say, month equal, so December, right? December, then we want to log this to the console. So let's log to this to the console. Let's copy this and let's paste it here. So we'll see how we begin to write so many else if, and also if we change this to, let's say, February, we'll have will we have, okay, so we'll have it's February and so forth. So we change it to March and we have March, right? So this is one way to do it, right? But a more elegant way will be to write it using a switch statements, right? So we are done with this. Let's comment them. So one way to write them is just, so let's try and convert, right, to switch statements. So what we do is that we have to call what we call the switch statements, right? And give it what it has to evaluate. So we're going to evaluate month, right? Then we open it. Then we have to write cases for it. So we say case, and we have to do something like, so I think case, what we'll do is, I think we'll do case, and we will call one thing. So I think case, then we call the January, I guess, January. Then if the January is indeed in the month, we want to console, right? We want to console.log this. So let's copy this and paste it here, right? So we are trying to watch this to write the switch statements, right? So what we do is that we use the switch keyword, right? And we pass in what we are evaluating, and we write cases for it. And now each time we write a case, you have to break, right? You have to break, so that the code will know. So let's write another case for I think February. Let's copy this and let's write the case for February. And you see that I think this is a more elegant way, right? I think this is a more elegant, so sorry, let me not bore you that much. Let's copy this and paste it here, and don't forget to break it so that when we hit that case, we just come out of there. So let's go to match, right? Match, and we have to copy its match and so forth. So console.log match, come match, and we break. So one thing that the switch statement give you is that you can have the defaults, right? You can have what you call the defaults, right? Defaults, and the defaults will be just like this, and we'll just say, let's say, let's console, right, .log, this, let's say, does not exist, right? It does not exist. So we'll see that when we change the month to, let's say, June, we'll just have this does not exist because that's the default, right? So you will see that this is a much cleaner way than just to write if, else, if, else, if, else, if, else, if, and else, and all those. So we'll see that this, you see, this is more readable and this is more clean than what we did initially, writing if. So it depends on the context, right? In some contexts, you can just use the if and the else and the else if just to go around your problem. But you see that when your cases are becoming, when your conditions are becoming so much like long and very difficult to write, you can just wrap them all in a switch statement, just give it a condition and just do whatever that you gotta do. So let's now come back to this ones, right? Let's come back to this ones. Now we can also use switch statements to console.log this, right? So in that case, we'll just pass in true here, right? We'll just pass in true. It will just receive true in that case. Okay, I think let me just copy this and this, let me copy this, and I think I'll show you here, right? So we have what we call I think let me so any statements that are, so let's say true, right? True, and let's say we have case 1, right? So we say let's say I don't know what example to give. Okay. So let's say 2, 1, and let's consider log something, at least something. Let's see what happens. So let's paste this here. Oh, come on. Let's copy it, and William, I think we are running out of time again. This and you see, so when we break this, we see that, let's try to comment this, and we'll see that we just need to pass true into the switch statement so that we can just evaluate our cases here. So we see 2 less than 2 greater than 1 true. So y is, so we see the results here. So that is one way to also, you don't need to pass the evaluation inside the switch state. We can just pass in true. So we know that if this is true, this gets executed, right? And it will break out of the loop if it just finds what is true, like what's the expression is really. So I think we'll just, with much practice and when you practice a lot, I think you get a hang of it. Now, the last thing that we'll try and look at is what we call the ternary operators, right? So the ternary operators are just a simple and a more elegant way for us to write if statements, right? I think they are more like a fancy way for you to write if statements. So assuming we had something like this. So let's say let's give it a variable. Let's say var, and let's say we can drink if only we are at the age of, let's say 18, right? So let's have a variable called age, and let's set the variable to, let's say 18, and we can say, right, drink, let's give it a variable called drink, and we can say that drink, right, is equal to, and we try to cause an evaluation, right? So what will be your evaluation? So we'll just try to say maybe if age, right? So if age is greater, let's say if age is greater than or equal to, let's say 18, right? Then we have this, well, then we have this sign, right? Then we have to console the log what we want to say, right? So let's console the log. So let's say hey, let's say hey, you can drink, right? Else we use this, else let's say you can't drink, right? So this is a more elegant way to write an if statement. So when we when we console dot log drink, we'll see that we'll have an output of hey, you can drink, you can drink. So hey, you can drink. So this is similar to just writing an if statement, right? Writing an if statement and going like so if age, right, is greater than or equal to, let's say 18, then we want to say, we want to console, let's do it by hand. So we want to console dot log this, right? Else we want to console dot log this. So we can just take this and paste it here, copy this, and paste it here as well. So this is similar to writing this. So you see that this is a more cleaner way for us to write. There's a traditional way, right? And this is just using ternary operators, right? So we are saying that if the age is greater than or equal to 18, question mark. So this question mark is, so I would say this question mark is just like something truthy, right? Truthy, and the colon is just like a false, right? A false, yeah. So this statement, right? Is it truthy? If it is, do this or console, print this or return this. if it is falsy, then also return this. So we see that the output that it will come will get stored in the drink. So when we console.log the drink, we get an output. It is similar to just writing this 4 lines of code and this 2 lines of code. So I think when you have a situation where you have to write a simple if to just check some conditions in your code somewhere, and you think you don't see the need to write a big if statement, like the traditional if statement in your code, but you want something simple just to check an evaluation and return something, you can just use the ternary. So that's how we spell it. I think ternary operators, right? So this is ternary operators. You can just do this one liner in your code and it will. So I think I remember, William, I remember when doing React or something, we used to do something like this. Yeah, whereby you just open this and just do, if it's something is true, there's maybe the screen is that something, you just render dots something. Yeah. So if you try to understand these basic tricks and tips from these tutorials and try to play around with them a lot in learning frameworks, you will see that you just be having so much flexibility on writing the language. So I think with this basic, it is very key to understand this concept, this basic concept that makes code writing very efficient, right? So I think we'll bring our tutorials to the end and we'll see you in the next tutorials. Thank you.